is our show for today. This is Flow State Studio on Saturdays. I get to play host today. Brian Muka at the helm today, along with Dr. Jake Felice. And what we're covering today is 47% to 56% of you. These are real-time numbers are flirting with severe burnout. 96% is chronic stress. And the idea today is the mitochondria doesn't give a shit. It doesn't give a shit about your numbers. So we're gonna take care for the body today. That's what we got in store for you today. And without further ado, let me introduce the wonderful and gracious co-host today, Dr. Jake Felice, longevity performance physician, also a fellow Flow State apprentice, precision of lab-based medicine, along with a very deep background, manual therapy and psychology, integrated systems. Data meets direct experience. Really great at that intersection. What we're seeing is today is the day and age of the polymath, no longer the specialist. Dr. Jake is a master of a lot. He claims to be a small wave surfer, to highlighting his humility in that. And then we're going to talk about mitochondria, some sleep stuff, and blue light hangovers. So music, surfing, more in control of your creativity and being, well-being, I should say, and productivity. So that's, these intros don't do him justice, but honored to be co-facilitating with you today, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. And Brian, part of what impresses me most about you is your history as a special ops bomb diffuser, both in Iraq and also doing underwater bomb diffusion, and talk about an activity that can absolutely get you locked into the present moment. I'm super curious about how you would or were trained to handle that intense type of an environment. Brian does a lot of things really well. He is deep into performance, as you know. I think he's also deep into spirituality, whether he knows it or not. That's just my opinion on the matter. And just a different take on life. He does this. He's a drummer, but he does this throat singing. What do you call that? What type of throat singing? Tonga?
It's Mongolian throat singing.
Mongolian throat singing.
Genghis secret weapon and taking over the world, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, question to you, sir. You got a bomb right there in front of you, and if you mess up, at the very least, you're going to lose some fingers and maybe a lot more. What how were you trained to keep calm in that situation, and then what have you learned since then about maintaining that flow in an extreme environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. A better question, actually, is not the on mission individual IED. 2 minutes or less. I'm wired specifically for that, and that started with my time on stage. I got stage fright really bad, and that was a problem because I was on stage a lot. I was the first tenor. I was the first trumpet. I was Tony West Side Story.
Oh, wow.
And like vomit level butterflies is a beautiful euphemism. Somewhere along my sophomore year, I learned, could this just mean the feeling I get before I do something awesome? So I rewrote the story, and that is actually how I jumped out of airplanes. And you'll hear is fear inoculation. So how do you get somebody to sit on top of 25,000 tons of explosives? Those are called astronauts, by the way. And the space shuttle was one of the modules in our ADOPS. That's our protocols to safing traditional munitions, underwater mines. Well, the space shuttle has its own chapter because it's a huge explosive device. You don't start on the launch pad on top of 25,000 tons of beyond rocket fuel, hydrogen and oxygen, right? So little by little is how you do that. You start by making clay, plastic explosives, similar to Maybe Caddyshack. You see Bill Murray do that. Every bomb technician makes little furry animals as their first detonation project, you know? And then you start to understand how explosives are actually a lot similar to sound. Sound wave propagation, explosive wave propagation are the same. And also light propagation, too. They're just different frequencies in that. So the explosive wave is more seismic, where the sound is more sonic in that.
Hmm.
But a more important question, Jake, you could ask is what about the long-term fears? Because when I'm hands-on, I didn't go hands-on in the real world ever. I did a lot in training, but I never saved IEDs in the real world. I was a training hero, so no stolen valor for me in that. But we trained at that level, and I was the lieutenant on the team, and I had a different role. I got to play a little. Um, and the adage, to be like really frank, like military level frankness, I either get it right or it's not my problem.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like that was the nature of what we were doing. And the better question, so you're never going to be hands on and on an IED. It's never going
Okay.
to happen, right? But you may be hands on in a crucial conversation, and for me, it feels the same, right? So the level of terror in some things, it's kind of like Alex Hunold in a lot of ways. He's just used to that level of what is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The better question is like, what if I'm not the guy on the team? What if I'm not good enough? The imposter, like the long term fear stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more
Yeah.
relevant. That I was untrained for that, and that was the start of my journey of like really understanding who I am, the shadows, why I show up, what my triggers mean, and where are they from.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And this long-term fear, imposter syndrome thing, I think a lot of us have this, and various different levels of our training. I want to just dial back to this, what you call this vomit level stress, and tie it into a sports analogy.
Yeah.
Larry Bird, one of the greatest basketball players ever, had, especially before big playoff games, vomit level
Yeah.
fear. And he would vomit before games, and then he would go out. He would literally puke in the locker room and then go out and play world class basketball, epic world class basketball. And at a certain point in his career, he stopped vomiting. And that is when his performance dropped. So this is why I think action and adventure sports are the leaders of the flow laboratory in many ways, because there is life risk at stake on extreme ends of skiing, on extreme ends of snowboarding, surfing, rock climbing, those types of things. And so that is an extreme type of flow, but flow is a spectrum. And for me, long-term fears, I think, we bring into our work environment every day. So being in flow at work, in a busy job with a lot of patients and a lot of shifting of task, and lots of information coming in from different angles, always problems happening. It's easy to have the self-talk start repeating these long-term fears, this imposter syndrome. Our CEO of our company is a war hero, wounded many times in Vietnam, later became a country doc in where he worked a small hospital in Idaho for over 20 years, I think.
Wow.
And there were only 3 docs in the whole county at this time. And he calls it pucker butt medicine, where you're just puckered the whole time trying to figure out how to do something at the stretch edge of your ability. And so with flow, there's a skill challenge area in between, where if there's not enough skill, the event is boring for us. Probably little wave surfing for you. It's not low challenge for me. It's middle of the road challenge, which is where I get that. So that chill skill challenge. And when we are in workflow on a busy day, breaking our cognition down from these long-term fears, which can catastrophize things, to how can I create a micro environment where the task that I'm working on is
Yeah.
within my skill set and stretching me. So talk about that a little in terms of your
I'll do that.
long-term fears and what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, great questions. And if you have the questions, you also have the answers. So I'm also looking forward to yours. You're a high stress flow laboratory in the real world. It's really valuable, right? So part of just behind the curtain, guys. So as we're going through this, so think of like F1 race car teams, tier one operators, Steven Kotler's stuff, becoming Superman. Um, Guys like Chuck Foss. So he was an NHL Hall of Famer friend of mine. He would puke in the bathroom before every game because it mattered. And he has the Rudy story of hockey. Like he wasn't on the starting team, and he earned his way onto it, and then became a Hall of Famer. And he does a lot of work with mental health for athletes. It's a really stressful thing. The Price of Gold is a great documentary led by Michael Phelps. It's called The Price of Gold or The Cost of Gold, something like that. Suicide is really high among Olympic athletes because the pressure is enormous. Shane McCockney, he pioneered. He was like a crazy mogul skier, but he was the guy that started jumping off these large precipices. And he did a jump where he traced the line, and at the end of the line, he parachuted. He base jumped. So it was ski run to parachute, and he's tracing the line. It's like one of my favorite, most enlightening parts of understanding fear and flow. And he's like pointing to the line. He's visualized himself because there's a lot of moving parts to this. You know, it especially made bindings to release the skis so he could open the parachute safely. And he's like, man, just feel the fear. So here was a guy that wasn't afraid of fear, and he learned how to use it. And I thought that was really, really noteworthy. And my hypothesis here is that I need a little layer of activation, fear, energy to pop me into flow. Like it's got to matter. So that's what I think about. And then a model, as you were talking, is like the anxiety of this. Like, I don't think I'm qualified to do this, right? Like I'm over my skis to keep that analogy going. So if I'm in the future, think of a hurricane. And if I'm ahead of myself, even sometimes minutes, right? I had one step to do. That's all that matters in the world. Right. So that's part of the bomb tech. All I have to do is set up this energetic tool just right. That's it. I'm not looking at the whole war. I'm not looking at my whole career. That's too much for my little tiny CPU. Right. Also, I can't be in that moment thinking about all the times I fucked up in training, all the times I turned red with this really pervasive red powder. Let everybody know you killed yourself in the practice area. Landmine went off. What happened to you? Oh man, I did a stupid thing on this pod on a A10 Warthog, you know? And so like dying and training prevents dying in the real life. So shame is part of the training process. And that I really fucked up. And our rules in the EOD community are written in blood. That's how we learn this stuff, right? So it's a high cost and to honor those things. And I'm sharing all of that for the hurricane analogy. So if you're experiencing anxiety, you're in the future. And if you're experiencing shame or guilt, you're in the past. I promise you, it's possible to both time travel forwards and backwards at the same time, to be both anxious and guilty at the same time. And my invitation to you is be the calm eye of the hurricane. Because in the eye of the hurricane, it's a low pressure system. And it actually pulls the metaphysics to me if I'm fully present in the moment. It sucks things to me instead of rolling the heavy boulder up the impossible mountain.
Yes. And that still state in the midst of the storm is something that we have a birthright to access in our nervous system. We can achieve that in our lives. You mentioned the suicide thing, and you mentioned it in conjunction with flow state junkies. Every athlete has a limit to their career. There will be a day where there will be, for me, my last wave. I might have already surfed my last wave. I don't think so, but sometimes it passes without. But also in the military, guys get a charge out of being in that flow state with the team operating, with the team clicking, and suicide rates are very high in certain parts of the military, especially after they are back out in the civilian world. I work with a longevity population, so I see what happens to a lot of guys after they retire, and they go from being this C-suite executive on a big, fast-moving team to just some old guy at Walmart walking through, and the changes that retirement, the challenges of retirement on the psyche. I like what you said about being not afraid of fear. We part of what we can do to really improve our lives is to understand that in our day-to-day world, we go through these mythic cycles of fear and anxiety, where we can be the hero in our own life. And one of the beauties of flow states is at a certain point in time, the fear can drop away. You can enter a timeless moment that is extremely rich in its environment, and it's very pleasurable, and you want to do it again and again, and that can be motivating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so
And it comes
yeah.
at a cost, right? So what I'm experiencing right now, Jake, is I'm playing with the agentic version of the sovereign operating system. So part of that is a
The sovereign operating system.
so a big part of that is my bioquantum machine, the nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
polydouble nitric oxide,
Mm-hmm.
heart rate variability, DMT, those things that the body makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the outside stuff. What AI agents am I using? How can I get more time back in my day? And so I have a challenge with executive function.
Oh, a challenge with executive function.
I do. I'm a really good innovator, and I'm a really shitty worker bee. Because it's hard for me to just stay in the executive assistant road, and do the go high level stuff, to do the stuff that just anybody can do. If anybody can do it, I'm not really interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did 75 hard a bunch of times. It took me 140 days to complete 75 days in a row of 75 hard. And the thing that got me was the progress picture. Anybody can do it. It's not the hard part. I only want to do the hard part, So it taught me a lot. And so what I'm finding, I've offloaded a lot of this executive function stuff. Like, what do I do next? That question is expensive for my psyche. There's like unlimited things I could do next, but I've already come up with a plan, and I have a system that shows me what's next, right? So in my work, I've been experiencing like months worth of flow state results in a matter of days. And I don't want to get out of the flow state. It's kind of like how I feel before I go to sleep. I don't want the day to be over yet. There's more I could do. And so the press, how do I reload? The superlative of all of that is like, I don't know, Jim Lovell, like saving his crew on Apollo 13 on another celestial body. Going to Walmart's fucking boring. And then I had a client today, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can only meet for 30 minutes today. I'm sorry for that surprise right before our session." And I was like, "Dude, nobody's shooting at me. There's literally no chance of explosions during our session. We can flow with it." So there's something about training to go to the moon, whatever that is for you in your life, and there's everyday life. And then I just iterate this is paradoxical, because flow's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's addictive. It's a great drug. Pain's a great drug. It taught me a lot of things, and I was addicted to it. That was my drug of choice for a long time. There's a come down. There's a come down cost. It's a leading organization. So, like, how do you reload? And like, if we're gonna teach flow, like, I need to teach you how to come down from flow, because in my shooting career, that 31st click, I'm out of rounds. I'm holding the gun of a dead man. So the reload is just as important as learning how to shoot. For sustainment purposes. So Rickson Gracie said, the grandfather of mixed martial arts here, certainly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the United States. If I'm always on, I'm never on. So that's what we're going to talk about today a little bit. Our nervous systems being burnt out running next level AI technology. And there's some 21st century, it's not a motivation, but a sustainment conversation we could have.
Absolutely.
So I want to double click because Jake, you have an incredible background, and I was kind of hoping, how did you arrive here? Like, why does this resonate for you? Why did we like put our heads together for like 2 years before we started doing it? Like, why did we stick with this? Like, what was in it for you?
Man, okay. Well, I'll give you the long version that nobody wants to hear, and I can give you the short version without context. So I'm gonna let's ride a medium-sized wave on this one.
Medium size guy.
I had a couple flow state experiences as a kid, elementary school age. Couple times, I grew up in the 70s as a young kid and in the 80s as a teenager, and so we were a little wilder then. But I was a terrible basketball player. I was never good at basketball. About the only thing I was pretty good at defense. I was always a tenacious defensive player, but I had no offensive skills. But a couple of times, there were days where I couldn't miss a couple days where I was on and it felt great. And I was like, how am I doing this? It feels really good. I know I'm not this good. I know I'm really terrible. And then the next day we'd have a pickup game and then somebody would pick me first because they thought I was a good player, but I really wasn't. And that was a disaster. Another time happened in a very long, went to a tennis camp as probably an early teen, 12 or 13. And again, I'm terrible at tennis. I was a D1 athlete at Penn State, but that's a different story. I'm not a bad athlete, but not good at tennis. Um, did a week of tennis, and at the end of that week, I played a match with a guy who was much better than me, and we were both in a flow state, and we had it was over 30 deuce to the game for the set. We battled for a long, long, long time. And eventually I got out of flow. I talked myself out of it. I lost the game. I saw the guy like 20 years later. He still remembered that game. It was fun. It was fun. Anyway, Ian George, if you're out there, this is me here. Fast forward to played a little D1 ball, not really good. I had already moved on to different interests. I didn't make the leap from being a very captain of my high school team to a D1 level because I didn't have the mental aspect, but I got to play at that level. I got to travel.
Mhm.
I made the traveling squad at that level. I played in a lot of games, even as a
What sport?
freshman.
Is that tennis?
Um, lacrosse,
Oh,
lacrosse,
gotcha. Okay, cool. That makes sense.
lacrosse. And then I went to Japan after graduating from college. I taught English there and ended up staying for 5 years, studied martial arts, and I also studied shiatsu, which is the introduction to my healing aspect. And that guy was a Zen master. Mishima Sensei, my shiatsu sensei, was a Zen master. And I started getting into the ancient Japanese literature, and the samurai and the Zen masters discovered flow state. There's a Zen master named Takuan Soho who wrote a book called The Unfettered Mind, who talks about how in a combat situation with a samurai, sword on sword duel, how to maintain your flow state, and how when the instant you break flow, that's when, and he talked about a hair's breadth difference between life and death. So you're talking about a vomit level incidents. Those guys battled, and Takuan Soho was a teacher of a swordsman named Miyamoto Musashi. Joe
Ah,
Rogan talks about
yeah.
Musashi. Musashi's got a couple books. Everybody talks about his Book of Five Rings, which is a business classic, but I think that by far the best Musashi book, and then I'll kick it back to you, but the best Musashi book was an autobiography written by an author by the name of Eiji Yoshikawa, who talks about the progression of Musashi's mind from being pretty much a cocky teen thug. He was a thug. He was a thug like a thug life thug would be, but in the 1500s in Japan, to a fierce warrior who was a little on the dark side of flow, to a warrior who kind of reached a type of an enlightenment. And after his 30th duel, After his 30th duel, sword to sword, this is documented history, real human stuff, witnessed by hundreds and hundreds of people. This is a real thing. He realized, I can't lose. I'm in this flow state. It's impossible for me to lose. And it took him 30 more duels where he was death matched with 30 more people before he realized, I can't lose. So I have to put my sword down, because if I keep carrying this sword around, I'm going to be challenged by people and I'm going to kill them. And then he became what was the equivalent of like the governor of a big state like Texas or Pennsylvania or California. And Musashi turned his sword into a plowshare and worked for peace in that country. So anyway, I guess that was a bigger wave than I thought was planning on riding, but that's kind of
Right.
like my origin story.
I love it.
And then surfing for me, and now most recently really playing music, because I do that a lot more than
Yeah.
I surf
Hey, let
surf
me
these
pause this.
days.
First of all,
Yeah.
you opened the loop to us brilliantly. I'm on the edge of my seat. What is the name of the Musashi book?
It's called Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, just
Yeah,
titled Musashi.
gotcha.
It's a
Jocko
biography.
Jocko
Yeah.
Willink talks about this book a lot.
Who does?
Jocko Willink.
Oh, Jocko. Yeah.
Yeah. So Musashi, and it's a tomb. It's a read.
It's
Uh,
a very big book.
and why I am enjoying what you're sharing is what we just did there was we related the micro to the IED to the tapestry of a masterfully led life. And it's interesting to me once again. One of my master chiefs, badass senior chief or master chief Thomas, like, what do you look forward to when we're back from deployment? He's like, I want a garden, man, and I want to spend time with my son. This guy's tatted up. He was a badass, snake eater. He's like, and it like rocked my brain. Like, why would this warrior want a garden? I understand now, and I can summarize it in one line: peace be with you. It took me a lifetime so far, like a week ago, to really understand the Shaolin monk
Oh
samurai
yeah. Yeah.
peace, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
opposite of our hustle culture right now. And so one of the things that really stands out about Dr. Jake, guys and girls, he's a polymath, and a trend that I'm seeing, at least in my soul family, the specialists are missing out. 80s, 90s, 2000s, all the glory to the specialist, you know? But like the folks like Jake that understand how these systems fit together, and multidisciplinarian in terms of what are the Japanese videos for me in my YouTube pursuits, and what you just shared about history of the warrior that figured out, this is ancient medicine, and it's a rich oral tradition, and your I would say healthy obsession with mythos, we learn through stories. And so what I'm seeking to do with the show with you guys also, and let us know, what you want to hear about, what we can double click on for you that's valuable. The intersection between the stories and the technology. And for me, I'm the Jedi cross with Tony Stark, the biohacking, the health trackers, the science. But if we're only looking at science, it's only 1%. The yogis knew a lot. The traditional Chinese medicine people were 3,500 years ahead of track with what they already knew about the body that science couldn't prove. So there's space for all of that here. So I'm just I'm amazed by that. And I've known Jake a long time. And every time there's like another layer to his particular artichoke, not onion, because there's a big juicy heart in the middle of all that.
Thank you. Thank you. That was quite a well, you mentioned this science piece. We have to respect science. Science is a great tool. Science is an objective measurement. Science measures the outside of things. It does not measure the subjective experience of things. This is why some doctors don't consider psychology and psychiatry actual sciences. I did my undergrad degree at Penn State in psychology, and it's a behavioristic approach, at least back then. So we had to measure everything, but we were measuring externals.
Right.
So you can look at the brain and its activity from the outside with fMRI and what is going on in terms of flow states. You can look at it in terms of what is going on in meditation. You can look at it what is going on in orgasm. You can look at what is going on in fatigue. And you can see from the outside, there's a correlation with the subjective. But part of what we have to do as humans, we have all these tools that measure the outside, but we have to live on the inside of a subjective personality. And this is where the narratives are important. This is where the stories are important. And flow is a great story because it ties together all of these. We have objective measurements and we have subjective measurements, and we get to see them play out in real life, in our own world, in our struggles, in our releasing of those struggles, in our entering into flow, and then our leaving flow, and then our recovery, because flow is a high energy state. You have to recover from it, and then you get back into it again. And we see these same cycles repeating over and over again. And Brian, with your breath work, that's one of the, and we can talk about the external, the vagus nerve, but that breath work really can retrain the mind to get from the state of outside of flow, inside of anxiety, inside of fear, and cross back over into those ideal states.
Let's double click on that. So I followed in thinking, I kind of adopted the Greek philosophy, the logos. It is all science. Okay, so let me read the books, and I'll do the courses, and I'll do the retreats, and I built this working body of knowledge. Let me get skilled at language coaching, and I first started Fear Sherpa, language coaching and breath ice bathing, Wim Hof style. So I think Wim is like a great entry point, kind of like how CrossFit's a great entry point into gymnastics or Olympic weightlifting. Great, you're doing it. There's a lot of utility in that, and there's a subtlety to the breath. And I just remembering how much the intuition matters. And when I look at like Steve Jobs or like Phil, the founder of Nike, not Jackson, the other one.
Oh, that name's escaping me.
Phil Knight, the shoe dog.
Is that who that was? I thought Phil Knight was the basketball guy. Maybe not. Phil Jackson. Okay.
1970s, zero fucks about meditation. He knew it worked, and so he would do it. And so he had a reload protocol in that. And so, like, I think what's really cool is the masculine and feminine coming together in the same container. And we all have a sliding scale of how masculine, feminine. For me, it changes depending on what role. I'm in my masculine now for this as a leader and those things. And the breath is the entry point into hearing the whispers. Reconnecting with the Force, if you're a Star Wars fan. Chi, if you are a martial artist or a yogi, in that the prana, right? But the full expression of prana is pranayama. It's the breath of life. And the work that I do with my clients, if their breath changes, their metaphor and their life directly is affected. So the error that I made was the top-down approach that changing my thinking would change my life experience. It wasn't wrong, but it was only a tenth of the whole equation. And that so if the fear that we started with and the trauma, Carl Jung and the shadow integration is the brake, we want to take the brakes off. We don't want to remove the brakes, though. Those are useful. And I want to know why I brake when I could be, charging around the corner a little better or shooting down the face of the wave or the ski run or whatever. I want to know why I hesitate. That's useful. The accelerator is cool. That's the flow state. It's 500% more productivity, 400% more creativity, 230% more learning, especially under stress, is from a flow state. So if I have those things, the vagus nerve is the integrator to all of that. And the precursor to really the polyvagal tone is what is my body telling my brain. That is 10 times more powerful than anything I could think. And then anything I can speak out loud and show with my body language, the body does in fact lead the mind to what environment am I currently in. Choose wisely.
Hmm. Yeah.
It took me a lot of years to figure that out. And I went down that rabbit hole on the logic side, the language coaching, the NLP, all of that to give you that piece of intel.
So I think part of this is listening to our body, because our body can tell us about states that we are in. And what I mean by listening is you gotta practice this, guys. And there are many entry points into this. Brian, I know you're Wim Hof certified, but there are a lot of ways into this. One thing that I really notice when I lay awake at night and my mind starts to race, I look for the sigh or the breath where there's a release. And that, if you are able to notice that breath, if you're able to notice that breath release, pay attention to what your thought process just was. You just either realized something or you let go of something. And that is a clue. That is a clue where your nervous system is orienting you towards where you may want to start moving in the future. This can be helpful for creativity. Another place that is even much, much, much more subtle is the salivary release, because we have a fight or flight and we have a rest and digest.
Mm-hmm.
And when the rest and digest is activated, you get an increase in salivation. Where I really noticed this, I was actually working with clients and patients doing cranial sacral therapy. I don't do this in the longevity clinic anymore. I think it's a wonderful therapy, but you watch for that swallow reflex. So this you can observe. It's hard to do this in the daytime, but you can also observe this at night when you are awake and not sleeping, trying to get to sleep, or if you have periods in the middle of the night where you're up, noticing that's swallowing. It's like you have a big swallow, that the salivary glands release extra, and then there's a big swallow. That's a big area of doing that. And then another great way to listen to your body is notice your stress before a gentle stretching or a yoga session, and then give it a number, and then do 5-10 minutes of stretching. Look at your stress after that. And for humans, walking is a great way to take care of stress. Walking is so good for us. Walking is the best medicine in many ways. Anyway,
Yeah, I love this, and I want to tack on a little bit, Jake. In that, when I start to observe myself, right? So I'm always watching people's shoulders as they breathe. I can notice the respiratory rate. Dr. Jake's a little keyed up right now because he's getting his favorite treat of the week, some delicious. He's in Oregon, so some delicious coffee. Looks forward to it all week. So his system a little keyed up right now, which is nice. In that, I'm also watching his eye blink, so he's really focused in this. And so, like, you ever see like hostage videos where like SOS? Like, if you notice an increase in eye flutter, that's the easiest thing to notice. That person's nervous system is telling you what their stress response is, and you can see it. That's easy. Breath is secondary. Noticing in yourself, the salivatory makes a lot of sense because the body's getting ready to take in some food. It must be safe in that. And yeah, so that's useful. The fMRI conversation, I think, is rad in that. Like, actually having feedback. So Dr. Daniel Amen has looked at more brains under fMRI than anybody else. And it was like genius. You're having these psychoses. Let's look at blood flow to see if there's too much, too little. So I like that from a perspective of like, let me understand the system. I'm not a victim of the diagnosis, though, in that. And so I think why I'm saying that is there's tools out there. That's a high dollar tool. And to work with Dr. Jake is that same thing in this performance longevity medicine. But there's some like low cost, no cost ways of checking in with your nervous system, as you just mentioned. How does my body feel? Am I clumsy? I come back to the breath. I train with a heart rate variability monitor for 2 weeks to understand what is my nervous system telling me, and that's a good marker for that. It at least gives
Yeah,
me
it
some
is.
trend data. And
Yeah.
here's what I found. I read Brian McKenzie's Unwired, and like I need to track my vitals less. I was the very act of measuring sometimes skews the results. And so, like for example, I wear a Garmin, and I did that for about a month to get my HRV and sleep kind of under control again. I do that occasionally, but now I don't sleep with it. The green laser affects the way my sleep quality is.
Ooh.
So, like, Gatorade was like, you can't trust your sense of thirst. You can 100% trust your sense of thirst. The body will tell you you're hungry when actually you're thirsty, right? So there's some things to like get to know in the system. And so when I teach breath and the breath holds, that's a big deal in the Wim Hof. How long can I breath hold? The more fried my nervous system is, the shorter my breath hold. There was a direct causation in that I found. So after 2 weeks of like, oh, I'm at 60 seconds of my breath hold, my morning practice, 30 breaths, hold my breath. Wow, 60 seconds is hard. I'm fried. Today is not a good day to go to the CrossFit gym. And the days that I was like groovy at 2.5, 2 minutes, 40 seconds of breath holding, like today's going to be a good day. I'm in the green today. So the body has signs if you listen. And I think it's really important in this day and age to keep up. Information is happening so fast. And it's really easy to trick this. There's disinformation, misinformation. I'm not going to double click on that today. But your heart already knows what's true, what feels coherent and yummy. And man, if we could take the stress out of the system so you can listen to that, we're going to compress years into sometimes minutes in these epiphany breakthroughs. So take some work, and it's a new skill. And Dr. Jake, I just want you to talk a little bit about you coined this term. I think it's brilliant. 21st century skills. So we have
Oh,
this.
I got that from somewhere else, but 21st century skills, these are things we need to survive in the 21st century that we are not being taught. We're being taught 20th century information in the school systems, and we need 21st century skills to survive. One is stress regulation, and we have been talking about fight or flight, fear, fight, flight, versus rest and digest, or feed and breed, because the sexual, the birth rates are going down. Stressed out humans do not reproduce.
They do not.
Stressed out humans do not reproduce. There's a biologic reason for that. And I'll key it in with what Brian mentioned about eye blinking. Eye blink is a protective mechanism. Something hits your eye, you blink. The eye closing is a flexion-based system. So we talked in the last video about flexion, and full flexion is fear, and ecstasy, extension, the touchdown. This flexion extension dynamic between a fear-based nervous system and a relaxed or enjoyable nervous system. And you mentioned blood flow with fMRI. When we hit a flow state, this was mysterious at first. When science first started looking at flow state, they were like, let's look at jazz players. And then they did studies on chess players. And the frontal lobe is where we make all of these intellectual decisions and calculations. And they hooked up these chess masters and ran them through games and looked at their brain activity, and they were shocked because the frontal lobe was shutting down. Wow. And these chess players were making brilliant moves without their frontal cortex. Other areas of the brain turn on, but the thought process of the frontal lobes turned down, and what was happening was pattern recognition. They weren't thinking about it. They were just grokking the chessboard and entering into a flow state. So when we get into flow, part of our mental chatter turns down, and we feel like we're more our real self because we are less self-critical. And so you lose that critical element of language, and the language is a slow moving process flow is more fast moving, when you're on a wave, when you are flying through the air, on a skate after a skate ramp and get it coming back down, when you are an F1 race car driver in a tight spot in a situation where a hundredth of a second reflex makes a difference, having that mental chatter turned down. In one of the best ways to look at that from a data perspective is heart rate variability, not heart rate, but heart rate variability. So the heart has a rhythm, lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. The micro milliseconds between the lub and the dub, the wider that is, the higher your heart rate variability is, the more relaxed you are. And the tighter it is, the more the nervous system is clamping down on that heart rate as opposed to letting it relax.
Yes.
So this relaxation, stress, fear dynamic, flexion, extension dynamic travels throughout the entirety of the physiology. And so I just learned something about blinking here from Brian.
Amazing. So I want to zoom up a level, right? So there's a huge inertia in the culture, and we're making a difference in this hustle culture. The demand, the busy, as a badge of honor. We haven't got to the point yet where we're like, hey, I'm out of dopamine. We should reconvene in 10 minutes, right? And you have the right to do that if you choose, as you guys are leaders in your organization, right? I want to operate in flow, not from lack. So there's a bunch of ignored biological symptoms. People drinking a lot of coffee, headaches, back problems, all of that. The body's screaming like. And here's the thing. Here's what I learned in preparation for the show today. The sympathetic overdrive. I never thought about that a single time. I think about how do I handle the IED today? How do I handle the live presentation, right? This is a stressor for me because it matters, right? I'm a little nauseous before every time that we go to do this. What I failed to really realize until this research was the summation of the stressful skirmishes that I seek out in my life. The hard gymnastics workout I did before this, the 3 hours of sleep I had last night because we needed to take a family member to Newark Airport, all the stressors. And I can do that for 4 or 5 days. I can do 4.5 hours of sleep. I can do a power nap. I can recharge with sunlight. Like I know how to recharge and operate, but it has a load. And I can keep stealing from tomorrow until I can't. So the idea that the sympathetic overdrive, chronic inflammation, cognitive decline, immune suppression, accelerated aging. And this line, you're running modern AI software on ancient inflamed hardware. Holy shit, where was that when I was 22, training as a military athlete to go do bomb surgery underwater? Like, oh, the Airedales, the fighter pilots, they have to sleep for 12 hours before they can even touch a cockpit. Why is that different for them than you, right? You live in a multi-billion-dollar bio-quantum computer and the system that can't be bought. It requires sleep. It requires water and sodium and magnesium, potassium, iodine, all of these, PN type wide-band semiconductors. Like we need those trace minerals. We need joy. We need sunlight. We need to fucking play. And I need to shut the computer off. Like I need to clear out my cache like I do before every show. I need to close down all the windows I need to turn my computer off at night. Why is your sovereign operating system any different? And it seems counterintuitive to take a step backwards and really care for this machinery. But man, the benefits are huge. Instead of 30 hours of grokking, Jake and I are doing stuff in hours that used to take us days. And to have the courage to say, I can't handle this right now. I'm not in a flow state. I'm not in the state to have a crucial conversation. So let's do that when it's more time appropriate or energy appropriate.
And sometimes Monday rolls around and I'm not in a flow state and I got to go to work. That's a thing too. So to tie in this hustle culture, and I'm just going to try and maybe weave some things together here. Hustle culture. Who does it benefit? When we are stressed, man, we're easy to manipulate. And what do I want when I'm stressed? Cheeseburger. like to do some internet shopping because, man, if I get this, it's going to make me feel better. So we are easy to manipulate. It's easier to get us to purchase. And when we are stressed, we make bad decisions. That can be bad life decisions, bad relationship decisions. I can't believe I just said that. Holy shit. Excuse my language. Can't take that back. So when we are in sympathetic overdrive, the inflammation can contribute to that, and it can contribute to inflammation. Cortisol, which is a stress hormone, affects blood sugar over time. High blood sugar, a lot of researchers are now calling cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease, type 3 diabetes. That sugar will wreck the brain over time. And you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned the bioquantum machine, Brian. You mentioned a semiconductor, and a lot of this is interstitium. If you think of the cells as like if you think of a brick wall, the bricks are the cells, but the mortar is between all of the cells. And plasma in our blood is interstitium. We literally brought the ocean inside of us to bathe our cells. 1.5 billion years ago in the oceans, we started getting these cells that fed off of the ocean, and they put their junk and their waste products back out into the ocean. This is why our blood tastes like salt. It tastes like the sea, because we have brought the sea inside of us. And the cell membrane between the outside of the cell, which is where the interstitium, and I'm going to get sciencey here for a little bit, guys, but where the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell, there's a different charge between the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell. And the body can use that for information. So the membrane and the separation acts like a biologic capacitor. And on the outside of the cell, there are these sugar molecules that act as semiconductors when they are compressed or stressed, release piezoelectric signals that can be thought of as information. So if we are just thinking about the body in terms of a group of cells, that's old thinking. That's 20th century medicine. We have networked biology, and this all ties together in terms of stress, inflammation, hustle culture, and we have to maintain our internal equilibrium and internal balance from a physiologic perspective. That's going to help our mental, and then we have to work on our mental, and then that's going to help our physiology. And we all do this in a complex, chaotic world. And if we don't have the skills, we get pulled into that sympathetic overdrive, that stress overdrive. And that's part of what Brian's work is all about, is how do you bring that back? How do you bring that back, Brian?
So I want to share this line with you. And I study the villains of history to see how they're using these things. And they do. For example, Rockefeller takes a nap. He took a nap at 3 o'clock every single day, no matter what. He gave his nervous system a chance religiously. He had some other nutritional rules. He was Orthodox Jewish in that. Not Rockefeller. I'm talking about my other favorite family, the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds would refuse to negotiate with somebody that was calm because they didn't have their competitive advantage. So they would do things to stress the people that they were about to negotiate with. And all that to say this line: mastery of a calm nervous system is the ultimate competitive advantage. That's what we heard today with Musashi. He couldn't lose, right? So he had to put the sword down. The astronaut that went to the moon had to learn how to have how to be with calm instead of cortisol, right? So flying around at Mach 7 or faster, Mach 33 to leave Earth's atmosphere and gravity. And you're rewarded right now, short term, to use cortisol and adrenaline as your fuel source. That's fear. I haven't used courage. I'm excited. That's a type of fear. And peace be with you. And so the peace and the ocean inside of you, you can reconnect the ocean waves, the salinity, it's the same in the ocean as your blood. And remember, this is what Steve Jobs did, guys. He was able to be calm enough to look around the corner and disciplined enough to separate the signal from the noise. There's a lot of noise right now designed to make you afraid to put you in the fight or flight mode. And how we want to serve in the community is to help you have your calm nervous system so you can make your prescription choices. They're not given to you. You're, in the words of Andrew Bustamante and Chase Hughes, you're either doing the programming or the programming is being done unto you. We want to give you your sovereignty back and teach you how to use this incredible temple that your soul is in.
I love it. Okay, let me riff on this a little bit. You mentioned the calmness in the negotiation.
Yeah.
That's super interesting, because, you know, the thing about primates is, and we're primates, if you think about it that way. I know a lot of us don't like to think about it, but all primates have male dominance hierarchies.
Mm-hmm.
And humans are humans, how we have a little bit of an exception to other primates because we have all of this culture, but all primates, all monkeys, apes have these male dominance hierarchies, and testosterone is a very important part of the alpha male's psyche. Alpha males tend to have more testosterone than the beta males or the lower level males. However, testosterone is not what gives the dominant male success.
Right.
Serotonin levels do.
That's
And
joy.
serotonin levels keep them calm, so they have the drive, but they also don't get flustered. So that part of being in a calm state during negotiation has to do with serotonin levels. And testosterone, if it gets out of control, you can go into a rage or a fury, and you can do a lot of damage to yourself. One of the best ways, instant testosterone levels, with the adrenaline. And, you know, the Chinese have a great foreign theory. Is they think that is either in out of balance, and when the out of balance, anger erupts. But liver back into balance, the anger channel, that out of control element gets channeled into determination, and that's what allows us to march toward through discomfort we were talking about earlier. And and Brian, you were mentioning working through discomfort. I think you used the word pain.
Yeah.
But the from a Chinese perspective, the liver in health, they were using more metaphor than anything else, biochemistry, but channels that positive help the person.
Add to that, my friend. It's just let's do it, right. So he has such a great, you know, heard Chinese medicine so long time, integrating it with some modern tools. We can't leave this alone. So your feedback is important. Time together, we have a mastermind group that for this very thing. So today is like, and the actual initial, to navigate. That's something interesting. Out in the comments.
Can they get a hold?
I'm on LinkedIn. So Brian Muka on LinkedIn. You're watching this on YouTube, right? In the community, we monitor all that stuff. I have a school community called. Eventually, we'll have. We haven't done that. So, to hear from you, Jake. I'm available. You still?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. To me, Dr. J on YouTube, and I see patients full time, but I love to work with, and would love to. LinkedIn is one of the best of me. I try to pages and got a lot of on LinkedIn. I have clues on LinkedIn. As Dr. Pierce, and then I get a message. I don't read it. Some bot read that, and if it says Jake, that is a human. But if it just says Jake on there, I usually know that that's not that. So Jake, last name is Lic.
Not sharing shit you model your dopamine. Just letting us are so that you access the experienced wise. That's going to do it for an hour. That went by fast. And so if you have questions, insights, breakthroughs, we want to hear all that stuff. We're doing this together. So cooperation. We're really focused on cooperate quantum in the system. That's going to do it for today. Hanging out.